Tellefsen Hughes is a chiropractor of 32 years experience. In the first half of this episode, we'll hear about her chiropractic journey and learn about the ideas of physiological consent and interoception. Then we'll be inspired by her more recent project, a charity called the Green Hub Project that helps teens with anxiety and mental health challenges experience the healing power of nature through gardening. Hi folks, today we have the wonderful Tellefsen Hughes with us. She's going to tell us a little about her chiropractic journey and where that's led into the Green Hub project. So, Tona, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for taking out the time. I wonder if you could just give us an intro into how you got into chiropractic. And I know you got quite involved in pediatrics and where your practice has kind of taken you over the last while.
Yeah, it's so I've been a chiropractor for 32 years. This is quite a long time. And I'm Norwegian by birth, but I was born in the States and then I grew up in Sweden. And when I grew up, my parents sort of introduced me to complementary medicine quite early. So I've had reflexology, acupuncture, and all sorts of things. But I think that the main thing is that I always wanted to massage my friends. And so I sort of, whenever we would have things going on, I would always sit and do head massages and so on. And then I wanted to become a healer. And I remember that clearly. But I felt that wasn't really recognized. So I abandoned that plan and I didn't do sciences for sixth form. I went to France for a year to learn French after sixth form. And when I came back, I heard about chiropractic from my stepbrother, Håkan Sigrell, who's Swedish. And he, the glint in the eye, that he had, that inspired me to look into it. And I had to then go back and study the sciences, which was, I had been avoiding like the plague because I didn't think I could do sciences. So I did that. And then I got in and I went to Bournemouth to ACC. And did 4 years there, and I would say I came out as a chiropractor as a very much back pain, neck pain chiropractor, and I enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it like I do now. And it was when I started with my now husband Steve, when we started exploring pediatrics. We went to America twice to the ICPA pediatric courses in the early 90s when the fire was lit. And it was the pediatric courses and seeing these incredible pediatric chiropractors around, around the world, that inspired me. And then I just wanted to learn more about it. So being me, when I want to learn something about it, I learn about it and then I teach about it. So I started teaching around 94. And we went back to ACC and then I started doing more undergraduate teaching. So I probably was teaching pregnancy and pediatric for about 15 years. And everything was built on the fact that I wanted to learn more. And then I felt I needed to share it.
And that was the teaching at ACC, that was at undergraduate level, or were you doing postgraduate seminars as well?
I did both, actually. I started off with undergraduate, but then they got their own program with Joyce Miller. So that was pretty much taken care of. And then I came back and was invited back for postgraduate. And it was lovely. It took me also to Norway and to Sweden to teach. But it's hard work teaching outside practice. I was an associate, but then when you have family, it becomes hard. It's also hard to be a woman, I have to say, and to take time off from your family. Yeah. So when I started my practice in 2007 with Lux Yard, I then also had to really focus on that, set up the practice and the team and the people. So I stopped teaching around that time because you spend a lot of time researching and working, and then you don't earn very much doing it, but you earn a lot by where you learn from the others, and I always get inspired when I teach. So I'm very grateful for that time.
Brilliant. And you must have, so many people must have benefited from your knowledge and the learning that you were doing. So that must feel good too. I'm sure you run into people now and they say, oh, I remember what you taught me. That must be make you feel good too.
It's an extraordinary feeling when you meet people and they say, "Oh, you taught me at ACC," or "You taught me doing that." And yeah, that's a wonderful feeling. Then you know it's really been worthwhile. And I think, because I've been teaching lately, but in other circumstances, but I always feel if I can light a fire in one person, it's worthwhile the journey.
I like that. I like the lighting the fire analogy. That's great.
Mhm.
You mentioned right early on how you thought you would be a healer, but you thought that wasn't a valid thing to do. How do you see your role now, and how does the word healer fit with you now?
If it's much better, I'm not a healer in the traditional sense, but I feel that what we do as a chiropractor is we connect people to themselves, we connect people to their nervous system, and we help people to feel, to recognize their bodies. And that's a form of a healing. And, I think all chiropractors have patients who say, "Oh, you have this ability and this ability." And I think, again, chiropractic is, the most incredible profession. And we can help and realign people and release people in so many ways. I just know that I have to work with my hands. If I'm on holiday, my hands, they get a bit itchy. But I do work much more intuitively now. I sort of, it's very much about feeling what you're doing and feeling the connection with the patient. Recently, I learned a new word called physiological consent by Brandy and Don McDonnell. And that's a wonderful thing about, being connected to the person you work with. Will they be happy? Are they happy to receive your care? And that's part of healing. It's about that sense of what you do when you put your hands on someone. Are they ready to be?
Is that the same as some people talk about the system being open? Is the system open to receive, or are you forcing something on them? Are you forcing this adjustment on them, even though they've consented to lie down on the table? Is your adjustment something that's trying to force matter with matter, or is there a system opening that I hear some chiropractors talking about? Is it more akin to that?
Yeah, 100%. There are patients who, when they come, their sympathetic nervous system is so how can I say, tense, that there's no way I can adjust them for a few sessions, because I put my hand on, and you learn that by mistake. You learn that by making the mistake of adjusting someone and they're not ready to receive care, and then they will have more of a reaction. But when you become sensitive to that, I always also approach the patient with, I think you have to approach a patient with reverence. And so when you're coming into their field in a way, you need to just check that that's okay with them. And I don't know how to explain that, but I think it comes with being sensitive and open. And also, from my early days of working with babies, I can still have all the experiences in my head, or when I worked with a baby and you've had a massive change, you've seen a massive change. And sometimes that change, you can really feel it in the room. A baby that's been traumatized at birth, or, they're not communicating with anyone. And then you release, maybe cranially, you release something. And suddenly they look up at you and look at you. And they maybe never locked eyes with someone before because they've been so traumatized. And
so there's that physical release, but that creates something else in the room. There's a deeper connection with you and perhaps the parents watching on, and that's a different kind of energy, and it's hard to explain to someone. It's like someone going to a concert and going, "Oh, well, you had to be there." It's like "Oh, we had an amazing time. What happened? Oh, he's saying his normal songs, but you had to be there." Yeah. And you can only often get that feeling, and I think sometimes those are quite individual too. Each concert might make you feel great, but in a different way. And perhaps it's the same in our practices when we have those moments of I don't know what we're going to call it. Let's call it some kind of energetic change.
And I think also that with pediatrics, you get a feeling that when you have a child with you for the first time and they never had a chiropractor before, that they're in a fork in their life. And when they start having treatment with you, first of all, I think that, we help to correct and align them. We also connect them to themselves, so they start listening to their bodies and get that interoception opened up. And from then onward, they will not be the same person. And they
So can you, sorry to interrupt, interoception, what does that mean?
it's a wonderful word. So, we all know about proprioception, which is the body's ability to know where we are in space, and it has a lot to do with balance and so on. But interoception is the body's and the brain's ability to recognize how we feel. Are we hungry? Are we thirsty? Have I got a stomach pain? Have I got a pain in my foot? And a lot of people who come to chiropractic have dulled those senses for years and years and years. And they generally just say, oh, they have an ache, and they go, oh, it's all right. It'll be better tomorrow. It'll be better tomorrow. And every time they ignore the body, and the body speaks to us. And I sort of always say that it's whispers. And if we don't hear it, it will talk, and then it will be capital letters, and then it will scream and shout. And when you come to that end point, when it screams and shouts, that's when we often come to burnout, or, we get our back has a massive, blowout or something like that, or
a crisis event.
A crisis event, yeah, exactly, or the iceberg syndrome event, and when interoception is listening to the body, and so then
those are signals from organs, signals that we've been told not to tap into, or I'm feeling a bit queasy today, or just carry on. I'm feeling a bit fatigued. Are there any other words that can help us understand what interoception is? Because it seems quite kind of vague. Proprioception. I can move my elbow. I know where it is in space. I can show people. How do we explain or show people or explain a deeper level of interoception?
So headache, ache, back pain, feeling wobbly, feeling weak, feeling dizzy. There's lots and lots of words like that. And
so there are symptoms associated with it. It's not just a sensation in the body.
I think it can be also tired and exhausted. And I, it's such a new word. So I think emotions and feelings too.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of going to is, obviously the physical ones we can easier to describe, but the emotional ones sometimes aren't,
Yeah. So I love it when, when you start working with children when they're little, and the parents sort of understand what chiropractic is, and they use chiropractic alongside medicine. I love when children say, Mom, I need to go and see Tona. It's time for me to see Tona. Sometimes they can't explain what it is. And other times they say, I have a popcorn in my neck. Some children say that, or I have a crick and she needs to adjust me. And that means that they've been brought up with that, listening to the body from a very young age.
Yeah.
And sometimes the parents say, oh, should we go to the doctor? And they go, no, this is a Tona job.
Yeah, yeah.
And I guess that's a form of interoception. And any manual touch will do that. So massage, chiropractic physiotherapy, osteopathy, but also yoga. And, when you do exercise that is mindful.
Yeah.
Because you can do a lot of exercise that's not mindful. You just turn off the head and then you just go for it. And I've had at least 2 occasions in my life when my body screamed and shouted at me and I ignored it. So I speak from experience.
Yeah, I think we've all done that. We've all done that for sure. Yeah, brilliant. I love that word. And sorry, I kind of stopped your flow a little bit there, where we were going with that. And so you were saying you're working more intuitively, and I guess the interoception is more an internal intuition.
Yeah.
So if we as the practitioners are using our intuition, we perhaps are helping the people on the tables to tap into their internal intuition and turn that on. And
100%.
So maybe that could be a.
It's the way we talk to our patients as well, about listening to these things as well. I think that being open to what the body says, and I think it's really important. I have a long time with my patients, so I think, and I feel I'm more of a chiropractic therapist than a chiropractic, just a technician, because I think it's really important to get under the skin of patients and understand. So how are you feeling right now? Okay, what's going on in your life? And so very often patients say, well, I don't know if I hurt my back, but I don't know what I've done. And we explore all the options of what they've done. And then I say to them, okay, so how is your life really? What is going on in your life? And then it's always, messy divorce, bullied at work, overwhelmed, they're just doing, it's a lot of stress. And then I talk to them about what happens to the nervous system when we're overwhelmed, when we're doing too much and we're not listening to it, and how the nervous system, goes out to every cell of the body, and it can then put the body into a higher state of fragility and tension. And we even move faster when we're stressed, and we move less mindfully. So we're much more likely to hurt ourselves. And they go, okay.
Yeah, okay. So that, I absolutely, we see that all the time in terms of the sympathetic nervous system picking us up and tightening things and tightening muscles and making us super focused on our challenges, which are all healthy things in a stressful environment. I'm just wondering, so you obviously the patients get to talk to you, so there's a feeling of they're getting rid of something or expressing themselves and accessing their stress. And then you're giving them some insights into how that affects their body. And then I'm presuming you're going to give them some chiropractic care.
Yeah.
So of those kind of three things, let's say, which do you think has the most impact, or are they all kind of bunched together?
Well, it was interesting during lockdown because then I closed my practice, and I then decided to go on Zoom, and I thought I couldn't work in the NHS, so I decided to just offer payments for my charity. But it was a massive learning thing for me, because then I could just talk to them and I could look at them and see them, on the screen. And some of them got better because the talking and the listening and being there, they knew I was there for them. And then giving them advice on how to move. And I have an app with exercises, so I was directing them to those exercises. But we also talked about posture. And in some cases, it was a question of them knowing that I was there. And some got better, but some were desperate on the door when we opened up again, because they needed that adjustment. So I think, Tim, that it depends on who you are as a therapist. So I think there are therapists who are they are hands-on only, and that's their skill and that's their genius. And then there are those who are, mixture. And I think what you have to do as a therapist, you have to find your genius.
Yeah.
And where you find your flow. I've thought a lot about this, whether you have a practice with an open room and you have your flow doing that, whether you have a closed door practice, whether you do 10 minutes, 15 or half an hour, whatever it is, you have to find your flow. And that's where you're going to offer most to your patients.
I think that's absolutely beautiful. I think finding your own genius, finding your flow, finding your space. And I think we all need to do that. And when we find it, not think that it's the only way. And
No.
I've certainly been guilty of that. But if I look at my practice, it's evolved so many different iterations. There's no ways I could have guessed where I am now. In fact, the way I'm practicing now, my 20 year ago self would have gone, no ways, impossible.
Yeah.
So, I think we should allow ourselves to develop and find our flow and express that genius. But then also, I think one of the challenges we have in our profession is that we think this is the only way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to, I think that's a really good point is to allow for that broad church of different practice styles and still be able to call it chiropractic.
Yeah.
I think also
what frustrates me Tim, is there are principles of practices who think that they found the golden panacea of how to work, or maybe they're driven by financial gain, and they then get associates and they tell them this is how you should work, and the associates come and they follow certain scripts and certain procedures that worked for the owner, but they find that they have quite a lot of circulation of associates coming and going. And I think my role as a practice manager who have practitioners working with me is to look at each of my therapists, and we have a multidisciplinary clinic, and see them as flowers and see how I can help them to bud, and to grow. And that means that they will work in their individual way, but then you see them blossom. And if I just ask them to work like me, they could be shackled to some extent. They could be held back. And I just want to take those principles who believe that they can get associates to be little molds of themselves and just say, please allow your associates to grow and blossom in their own way, and they will stay with you, and you will have a fantastically diverse practice.
Yeah. Or if you want to do that, find a way of screening those people. So you attract those personality types, those skill sets that are looking for that. And so that way we can hopefully experience less kind of burnout and judgment from people who the square peg in the round hole, or feel like the edges are getting chipped away. And I mean, they're different journeys, and we can, I think, having experiences and finding out what you don't like can be helpful too, in that process of finding your genius, because I want that, but I do want that. So, but I think you're right. I think it's, and I love the allowing them, using the flower image of giving them the right environment to flourish, and that's just it's a great segue to go into the one of the reasons I wanted to get you on the podcast, on the Natural You, is because you've had a wonderful initiative called the Green Hub, and I'd love you to share how that came about and the goals and how that's going.
Okay, so first of all, I love nature. I'm born Scandinavian, so very much into nature. And in 2019, I had the opportunity to take over a walled garden behind my practice. And you can literally only get to it through my practice, or the neighbors could get to it. And I was ready then to take that on. And I'd read a book called Lost Connection by Johan Hari. And in the book, it's about understanding the question of depression. And in the book, he describes these beautiful stories about people who have had lost connection with other people and then found it again, and also about social prescription and about nature therapy. And when I was asked to take over the garden, I thought I want to offer this to my staff so they can go out and boost themselves at lunchtime with nature, and then go back and serve patients again. But I knew that we wouldn't be able to be there all day. So I thought it would be great if I could offer the garden for a local initiative doing nature therapy. But for me, it had to be teenagers, because I have been teaching and working in the schools and community for the last 15 years, especially secondary school and sixth form. I feel passionately about this age group, about helping them to be empowered and finding themselves. And before lockdown, this stress in teenagers was going up and up and up. I was even on radio talking about it. And I had been running workshops since 2015 about this with something called Surrey Teen Summit. And that's another story. But when then I had the opportunity to take this garden, and then I started talking to people, and we started seeing if we could create something. And I was initially just going to hand it over to someone. But, if you want something done, you have to be involved.
True.
So we spent a year talking to a local GP, and then some other people came on board. And in 2020, some people came on board who were really, really committed. And the big thing was my co-chair, Vanessa Lanham Day, who came on board. and became my co-chair, and we had a committee that were committed. And then it was locked down, so we created a website, we started our policies, we created that DBS system, so we were ready to roll. And in July 21, we opened up the garden for our first 5 teenagers. And it was the summer, but we said, we've got to do it. We had 5 teenagers coming. And the premise is that the garden is for young people. It was 13 to 18, but we've expanded it now to 11, who are stressed, anxious, have some form of emotional well-being issue. It could be disordered eating. It can be, and it's 90% social anxiety now since the lockdown. And to come to our garden, young group comes in the morning and the older in the afternoon, because we now expanded to 2 groups. And they come for an hour and a half, and all they do is garden. And they mow, they weed, they sow, they stake the tomatoes, they care for something outside of themselves. And the nervous system just goes down.
Beautiful.
And there's a lot has to be done in order for them to come in, and all of that being safe. We're very safe with our boundaries, and we have 3 volunteers there, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean having those sort of checks. You mentioned DBS for the non-UK residents. That's a requirement, policing requirement, to see that someone's not on the offenders register or something like that. So it's just part of safeguarding for children. So I'm at a sports club, and if I'm going to coach the kids, I need to get DBS checked. And there will be lots of, because of child welfare, there'll be lots and lots of hoops to jump through. So I only know a little bit about it, but it takes a long time.
We were thrown into the deep end, and we were basically learning. And at the time, we were Googling, horticultural therapy for teenagers, and it didn't actually exist that many at the time. So we didn't have anyone we could go to for our age group. We went to some other local community garden centers, and we basically built it from scratch. And my co-chair, Vanessa, is my former coach and in business, and she set it up beautifully with our, the website and the database. And if it hadn't been for her, nothing would have happened, And now, literally, we have 60, 70 volunteers involved.
60 to 70?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I know. In 2 years, it's just under 2 years, we've just got charity accreditation.
That's arduous. That's an arduous task as well. So congratulations.
Thank you. We had a group in the committee who was working on that. And all the volunteers now, they get sort of once a term, we try and give them a course. So they have had safeguarding, they had an autism training. We're just going to do LGBTQ plus training. So they're getting something as well. And we do first aid training. And we're really excited right now because we're just partnering up with the local, it's a local small holding where they grow flowers to sell for shops and weddings. And they have offered to host a midweek group.
Wow.
And this is
really expanding.
I know. And
your little walled garden, and now it's blooming itself.
Yeah. And we keep saying, no, we're going to hold back. We're going to hold back. And we want to offer more 360. So obviously alongside this, we kept up the workshops. So I'm big on education and being empowered by learning, because I didn't find it easy to learn, and that, I didn't have confidence about science and in my ability about science. So every year we run workshop about study strategies, and they've expanded now to include stress management and what to eat. We just ran a workshop on how to make friends and relationships.
Wow.
We did one about understanding your magnificent brain, get the most out of your brain. So that's kind of my side more than the garden, but I have fingers in a lot of pies with this.
Definitely. Lots of touch points.
Yeah, that's the one. And we just 2 weeks ago started our first parent support group, and it's called the Parent Hub.
Okay, wow. And that's for, is it just for the kids that are going, or can other parents go?
Any parents of teens who struggle can come. So we had 16 the first time. Only a few were from the garden, and the rest were just from a local community. And we're going to offer it 10 times a year. We have therapists who will be hosting them. They have, a pattern how they run, and you can either come and just sit there if you're really overwhelmed, or you can contribute and take part. But when we launched it, we got 70 parents sign up interest, and that just shows how many parents there are out there who are frustrated and struggling with the children, and how they can help their teens with their well-being.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And tell me a little bit more about the garden itself, and how the different kids react with different elements of the gardening, because I think that's just fascinating. And I'd love to just hear a little bit more about the garden itself and the kids' interaction with that.
You have to come and see it one day.
I'm going to.
So it's, I mean, the funny thing was that when I took it over, it was a blank canvas. And I have to say, thanks to your niece, Robin, I've now done a presentation about how nature can help you feel good.
Oh, wonderful.
So, and which we're launching to Godalming College next week. And she inspired me. So it was a blank canvas. And then we had adults coming in, and we had like a DIY SOS where we had adults coming in to help to build raised beds and pergola. So the teens come in, and they literally love it because they can be themselves. So some love weeding, others will mow, others, we also do artwork, art and crafts, and that's where they sometimes start chatting. But we made it very clear that it's not talking therapy. The therapy is being in nature, outside, in the garden, hands in the soil, and helping to grow and build our garden. We also have a labyrinth. So we have a walking labyrinth.
Oh, beautiful.
Which was my little thing. I want a labyrinth. And it's a herbal labyrinth. We were donated herbs from pepper pot herbs locally. And so each step you take, you can then stop and go down and smell the herbs. So you get a different sense. And then you walk again, and then you smell another herb. And again, that's another way of mindfully sort of trying to get yourself out of your mind that you had when you came in. And, the testimonials that the parents have given us that are on our website showed that a lot of teens were really anxious, really worried, or some haven't left their rooms, and they came, and sometimes they garden on their own, sometimes alongside someone, and slowly but surely they integrate. And some parents say that they're just calmer at home. Some say, we're ready to finish now because our son's got confidence to go and look for a job now.
Wow.
And then our job's done.
Yeah. And the idea of the walled garden, so it's a super safe space, and they can only access it through your practice. So no one knows that they're going to this thing. They could be just going to the practice to see someone, but they're going through, and then they're coming into this oasis of calm, and then they get the opportunity without being judged. Everyone else there is also there to be in nature and do their thing. So they're all got a singular purpose, and then they can choose what they want to do. And there's when we put our hands in the soil, there's a connection there to the earth, and
there really is.
And I read something a while back how the bacteria in the soil actually have a positive impact on our neurotransmitters and actually help us feel better.
Yeah, so that's part of my presentation, is that the bacteria, we ingest the bacteria and it goes into our alimentary system, into our gut, and it stimulates serotonin, which is our mood leveler. And there are so many other things, like your friend from Holland mentioned a few podcasts back. For instance, we know that there's an aromatic compound that leaves emit that we know now has a positive impact on our well-being. Just merely being in nature and seeing fractal patterns. So the repeated patterns of leaves is called fractal patterns in maths. And that repeated pattern of leaves or of a bud, of a flower, has a calming influence on your brain. And the color green is on such a wavelength because color is a wavelength, and that's also been shown to have a calming effect on your brain.
Wow.
And the thing with the Green Hub is that they are in a small group, so they're safe.
Yeah.
We know more than 8. They are outside. They are in nature, which has abundant amount of research now to show that makes a difference. And they're moving their bodies as well, so they're physically active instead of sitting down. And we know that releases endorphins and other things. And they're also volunteering, so they get a certificate at the end of the 12 weeks. And we know there's a lot of research in when you're volunteering, you're making a difference in your community.
Yes.
It increases your dopamine, which is the other neurotransmitter that helps you with feeling motivated. Volunteering has been found to improve your immune system, to your sense of well-being, and all of this in one go, in one little hit of an hour and a half.
I've been jotting those down as you've been talking, and so if you just all those little things all adding up, so the bacteria stimulating the serotonin, the repeated patterns, the fractals in nature, the green wavelength, the smells, how those stimulate us, the movement, the volunteering, all of those elements are all stimulating the brain in a really positive way, and something we're designed to do.
Yes.
And so when we go back to nature, into our natural environment, the natural things that we should all be doing, and we wonder why people go, what's connection to nature? It's like, get your hands in the soil, you'll find out.
And I always say,
grow something.
And I always say that when they go in the garden, they get connection to nature, they get connection to others, and connection to themselves. And the other thing that's happened since lockdown is obviously the isolation. And then there's a huge group of individuals, whatever age, who are now isolated. And we are meant to be in a pack, or in a tribe.
Interesting. Yeah.
And when they come, they get connection with these other individuals. So we really like our science and our research. So we both get feedback from the teen and the parents when they leave. And then we have a little scorecard that they fill out when they arrive on how have I been feeling in the last week. And then on the other side, they fill it in with their own unique code. How do I feel now after an hour and a half? And our stats so far show that they have a 31% increase in emotional well-being.
Wow.
And I honestly don't think that there's any drug, any medication that can do that.
No. And if there was, it couldn't hit all of those things.
Yeah.
It couldn't hit all those multiples that we just touched on. It would hit one of those. It's like so. If you're looking for a broad spectrum approach to helping people in so many ways, I think we've touched on that really beautifully.
And I can,
Tona, it's amazing. We're kind of running towards the end now, and I know people are going to be listening and be quite inspired. For themselves to just have a little garden for the families, or get their kids growing, or get their teens to help them, or maybe they've been inspired to do something similar. They're just something's popped in their mind. Wow, there's that allotment nearby, or that barren space that the council isn't using. I wonder if we could use that. What tips would you use? And is there obviously you've done it already, so you've jumped through some of the hoops. is there something, it's not necessarily easy, but if you've got some guidance for people, things to do or to avoid, then I would love to hear that.
Well, I think the first thing I would say that if you don't have garden around you or nature around you, bring nature to yourself. So you start by growing something on your windowsill, or if you have balcony. Also, it's been proven to just sit outside in a park for 20 minutes has been found to increase your well-being. I would go to your, if you're on Facebook, I would go to your community boards on Facebook and ask, is there a community garden project in my town? And I would go and volunteer there, and start by doing that, see how other people are doing it, join those groups. There are now, community garden projects everywhere, which is wonderful. And people are connecting of all ages. Or say, go on the community, go on what a platform you use and say, I'm looking at doing something like this. Is there anyone else here who would like to? And then form a little group that you meet up with. And this takes more time than my practice. So you have to be committed to doing it. But, every time 18 has made a change, we hear that they've opened up, that they've been able to regulate better in the garden, or they're now getting a job, or they've got confidence to do something. They can look you in the eye in a different way. It's every hour that we spent on this has been worthwhile.
Yeah.
And I have boundless examples of the last 2 years of fork in the road situations for these young people.
Well, I'm going to share your website and the testimonials, because I think that'll be inspiring, and it's such an inspirational story, and how wonderful for those teens, and if we can get more people connected to nature, then that's the path. And I think you're doing your connection in your practice, helping people connect to themselves, and helping that nature inside of us, and then you're doing the nature outside of us, which is exactly what this podcast is all about. So,
there you go.
Thank you so much, Tona. It's you've ticked all the boxes for the natural you. So it's been wonderful having you on, and
thank you.
It's been amazing. I'm going to share all your links and profiles and stuff, so people can follow you on the social medias and have a look at what you're doing at the practice, as well as with the Green Hub project. So congratulations on your charity status, and a huge thank you for sharing your wisdom and inspiring us.
Thank you. I'm really humbled and grateful to be here, and thank you for doing what you do. I've been listening back to your other episodes while I've been out in my own vegetable patch and listening, going, I've got to stop. I've got to do this.
Brilliant. I'm glad. That's lovely to hear. Thank you so much. Thanks again. And we'll keep our listeners posted with your upcoming projects.
Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you want to connect with Tona, please find her details in the show notes. Reminder: nature is healing and holds the answers to many of our health challenges, whether it's connecting to our innate natural healing power that resides inside each and every one of us through approaches like chiropractic, or connecting to nature outside of us, allowing her to heal us in a myriad of ways. Until next time, keep accessing the natural you.